Hello and welcome to the EO Roundtable series, where we speak to optics experts about trends that are impacting our industry and beyond. I'm your host, Scott Bass, and today's topic is talent in the optics industry. Every industry has their share of recruitment and retention challenges. The reality is that it's typically a candidate-driven market in our industry, which means companies need to be creative about attracting and retaining top technical talent. For part 3 of this topic, we will once again speak with our own Edmund Optics technical talent, discussing global challenges, corporate flexibility and employee accommodation, why employees leave, and apprenticeships.
So in addition to having quite a few offices across the U.S. and in different areas, we obviously are a global organization too, with hiring needs in different countries. What are some regional challenges you're seeing when hiring talent?
Well, there's always weather preferences for where you want to live.
That up again.
I think Joel wants to leave New Jersey.
I don't understand why people don't like the Northeast, but no, I mean we commonly get that as an argument. I want to stay in the sun, or I've actually had the opposite. I get sunburned easy, so I want to stay in where it's cloudy. So I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and so it's or just folks just want to be close to home, and certainly recruiting out of Tucson, Arizona, it's tough to convince folks to leave there, particularly when they're born and raised in the Southwest. It's a very desirable place to live, and so you end up with push and pull for various reasons on both sides of the equation. But the one truism though is oftentimes where folks grew up and where their families are and whatnot tends to be the type of climate and the type of environment that they want to end up in, and so we find retention works best when you're kind of more in the local, staying more local kind of thing.
Yeah, I think on the same note, in Asia, I mean, obviously we're an international company, right? I think there's more of a culture of high turnover there, especially in the big cities, where there's all these opportunities for people to move around and try new things and find new companies. And
it's expected.
It's expected,
yeah.
right? That's part of the culture. And so, like, retention there is, I think, especially challenging sometimes, especially trying to manage it from overseas.
Yeah, we have a similar split over there as well. I mean, I think we see a difference in our Tokyo office and our Akita prefecture office.
Absolutely.
Right? It's a big city and small town.
Yep.
Very different. We have a lot more retention in the small town side of things
very
versus
different.
the Singapore factory where it's quite high. And so that also pushes you to the certain types of activities you can do in those areas. Yeah. You like to not have to have a 18-month training cycle in a high turnover environment, right?
Right.
Yeah, so onboarding then becomes a really critical issue. How do you get someone up to speed fast, particularly if you might end up losing them in a year or two, but you still need them to be productive within that year, and you're going to do it again with someone else when they walk through the door. That becomes a really huge concern of how you train. You can't just depend on them sitting next to the experienced person and just going to get it through osmosis and through just trial and error and on-the-job training, which typically means no training, right? You have to have a plan to get that person up to speed.
I think I'm consistently surprised with, even though I think globalization is happening and we're a global company, how much your site relies on the local economy. Yeah. I mean, the Tucson, Arizona office where I work was open specifically because the University of Arizona is there and putting out optics people, and it's creating optics companies, and there's an optics industry happening there. The New Jersey facility regularly recruits out of all the local technical and community colleges that Joel mentioned earlier, Rowan and Camden County and some of the local ones. And so even though this globalization is happening, I think every industry kind of has their own local ties, and everyone's always using the networking, buzzword, but that is how a lot of people find their jobs and move around jobs, is through your network, which tends to heavily be local. So, I mean, I think a lot of the challenges are making sure you have a local talent pipeline and network. That's how people hear of job openings and whether a company is good to work for or not, and all sorts of things you can't glean from across the country or around the globe. So having a local talent pipeline is still incredibly important, even with kind of the digitalization and globalization of today's market.
I would just say that the international placement hurdle is very, very real. I mean, it would just be so nice if we could actually just freely exchange and recruit across borders, as Nathan mentioned earlier. I mean, there's a significant cost to doing that, both with the tax man and with the immigration's office and all the legal assistance that you need to make it happen. It pains me sometimes when we have two equally viable candidates, one in country and one out, and it's just you have to end up giving a preference to the I don't know, the smoother path, I'll say. And but gosh, there's a lot of talent in a lot of the other countries where optics are prevalent, and but due to political boundaries and some of the climates that we're in today, it makes it very, very challenging. And it's actually it's the arrow in my mind is pointing in the wrong way, because it's just kind of becoming tougher and tougher to recruit and place internationally.
Yeah, I guess I always had this feeling like, every time somebody who, let's say, comes to the U.S. to get an advanced degree, I mean, a green card should come stapled to that diploma, right? Stay, please. Use your skills. Help us grow our industry, right? I would love to see more of that attitude, and it would really help a lot.
One thing I personally find frustrating when you're talking about, retention and, not having enough talent in the industry is, what I hear referred to as the leaky pipeline, where you have women that come into the industry and then you see them leave because they're primary caregivers, whether it's for parents or they're having children, and particularly in the U.S., which has abysmal maternity leave and legal requirements for paid salaries compared to some of our peers in Europe and things like that. I find that particularly frustrating because you've started with a larger talent pool and then you lose them mid-career. Right where we're talking about that we have the hardest time recruiting 10, 15 years, you look at the numbers and they just go down and down and down later in the career, and that's awful. And I just think that is very much a policy. That's it's similar to the, you should be able to get your diploma and stay here if you're from another country. To me, that's very much like a policy. I know that's a larger society thing, but I think industries can start pushing that more, because you're losing such valuable talent at such a valuable point in career in terms of expertise and technical talent. So I personally find that very frustrating in terms of retention. So I think there's more companies can do, but sometimes I think that it's got to come from a policy perspective.
So do you know of any studies out of, say, Norway, where they have these really, high maternity, paternity leave kind of policies where they have better retention of women in the workforce over time?
Yeah, I think a lot of studies focus on the kind of economics of retention. So people, when they talk about putting policies in place for, a paid leave where it's a year or something like that, one says, oh, that's so expensive, I can't just pay somebody to be there for a year. But then you talk about the price of retaining them through that year versus replacing that employee, because you're not talking about someone that's been in your company in most cases for a year. You're talking about someone with 10, 15 years experience that's leaving the industry. So how much does it cost you, not just in literal dollar terms, to hire someone new, to train them up, to get that knowledge, but then you've lost this, the knowledge within your company, maybe customer facing support, things like that. So there's all these economic losses that you take that aren't, I had to pay someone half their salary for a year. So I think, trying to look at the terms and economic benefits of supporting someone through a time they have to leave. And a lot of times this comes up with women in maternity leave, but I'm sure a lot of men would like to spend more time with their kids when they're born. I'm sure there are men and women that have to take care of aging parents or a sick family member. It's not just women having kids. So I think
kind of being flexible with the work environment, the technology era that we're in. A lot of people can do a lot of their job outside of the office, right? And allow that flexibility to do some of those things during those time periods. Whether it's maternity leave or whether it's taking care of a parent or any other thing, and accommodate those things, keep that talent, attract that talent for those situations and other situations.
And I think it normalizes that break in time too. Right now, you see, a woman has left her job for a year, then there's, they come back, there's kind of a stigma, or maybe they have to be more flexible because they're doing child caregiving, or now they're getting questioned as to, how much they've retained about their knowledge, or they have to get back in. When you have it more ingrained in culture that it's okay to take these leaves, or there's policies in place to allow leave, then it's normalizing it across your entire employee base. It's not just a woman suffering in her salary, or standing with her peers, or all of the kind of unconscious biases that come along with all of a sudden you're a mom, not an engineer type of mentality. So
yeah, the normalization gap is very real.
Right.
The parental leave's not even in the conversation. in the United States, and so it's commonplace over in Europe.
Absolutely.
And it's I think you end up seeing a lot of the benefits that you do have there. We've seen it with our own employees. They come back very, very happy, after their time away, and they tend to hit the ground running right away, and they tend to be quite committed to us for participating in that regard. And I would say the net benefit of not having that productivity loss of hiring someone and all the training and all of that, I think is definitely a net benefit, and certainly is a two-way street for retention on the employee side and then productivity on the employee side or employer
You'd have
side.
to choose between having a family and really doing well in your career, and the fact that that choice is just biased to one gender, is just a shame.
And I think it even goes broader than that. I mean, I think there's a general trend to see people as a problem to be dealt with rather than as a resource to be invested in.
Right.
There's a lot of that attitude of like, well, we just have to fix this issue, whatever it is, rather than, no, this is a person that actually adds to, the whole country, to be honest, right? And that, even from an early age, that should be encouraged. We're trying to compete in a global marketplace here. So, really fostering that is important.
Well, and that dichotomy of attitudes is really what separates various companies that are out there. And the pure bottom line focused companies do have that problem to be dealt with attitude, and it's very real. But I mean, that's feedback that we get from recruits that we've had from industry, is that's not the way I feel working here. And we, to the flip side, we've had other folks join us that have come from companies similar, and so it's not like we're the only ones out there treating people well, thankfully, but you kind of need to know what you're looking for and know the questions to ask in an interview to ferret that out.
I've heard a lot of things about why people stay here at Edmund Optics, why they stay on your teams, why you stay. Very curious to go around the table here and just ask, share some experiences where an employee that you might have invested in has left, and why.
I mean, we're just talking about maternity leave, and that's the first thing that pops into my head. I mean, that's not the only reason people leave companies, but I've seen a number of people in the time that I've been in the company that just are not ready, women who are not ready to have a kid and then come back to work in 3 months, which is kind of the standard time that you get after you have a kid. So I've seen multiple people who were huge assets to the company walk away, and I hope that someday they'll go back to their career with EO, maybe, but I've seen people leave there. The other reasons I've seen people leave is, sometimes there's a mismatch in goals, what you want out of your career and what space is in your, what path you have to move forward in. I find that because EO has a focus on culture, I rarely see that there's people leaving the company out of, anger or conflict with other people. It's usually more a mismatch maybe in philosophies or where your career path might lead you, or leaving for a better opportunity, which is something I think every company struggles with. So, yeah.
Okay. Ken, what about you?
Sure. So we've already identified that optics is just a small community, right? And to fulfill some of the positions that we have open, sometimes there are other people out of the industry that stumble into optics, and they like it, and they enjoy working here. But then sometimes those employees find new opportunities in the industry that they came from, and that might feel more comfortable to them. And they've enjoyed their time here, but they want to get back into the industry that they left when we got them. And I've definitely have come across that a couple of times.
Good. Nathan, you?
No one has left R&D in the time that I've been.
2 years. Okay, what about your
perfect track record.
prior company?
I guess I like that. So again, I guess I could say a little bit about sort of my motivations there. Yeah, it's feeling like you're making a difference is, I think, really big to me. And I think this is a company where I actually can make a big difference, where in the past I maybe felt like, it's sort of filling time, and, maybe I come up with some neat ideas, but do they ever get adopted? Right, or does anybody actually, change the way that they approach things? Whereas here, I think it's very dynamic, and yeah, if you actually find something that's useful, it's very likely to be adopted. So that's been pretty encouraging, and a good reason, I think, to stay. And then it's just overall, you have, I've made a lot of friends here, good attitudes all around, a lot of people that are working hard because they like it rather than working hard because, they don't want to get fired. which is, I think, a nice place to be.
One thing I'll add on is I think EO doesn't necessarily deal with this as much because we tend to be a fairly young company overall, but retirement is one place where I think companies are losing a lot of people. So especially I think you see a lot in some of the defense contracting industries. I think they're dealing with that a lot more than EO is, but you have so many people approaching retirement age and retiring out and then not seeing the replacement numbers coming in. So then you're not so much worried about like retaining an employee that's retiring, but then replacing that knowledge and experience and mentorship down. It's a huge loss to a company. So I think retirement is one of the big, where again, you're not concerned about retaining them so much, but replacing that knowledge that's leaving your company. I think that's also a huge problem in general in a lot of in the optics industry right now.
Yeah, actually, the very first thing I did coming out of school was I worked with somebody who had been working for 40 years and was retiring. And, was given the clear instruction, you have 2 years to learn everything you can from this person, which I think was actually huge, right? It taught me a lot of things that, it would have taken me a decade to figure out.
But I also see that as a failure in training for employees on that staff to have that large of a gap between the really experienced expert and no one else around them who knows how to do what they do. That goes back to that, wanting to encourage a collaborative environment, and that person maybe doesn't feel like they have to be the sole person who knows how to do this. Otherwise, they might be exited out of the company, and to kind of build that relationship so you don't have that situation.
I think the apprenticeship style learning is not found as much today, and that's why we're having an issue with a lot of trade skills that you don't have that apprenticeship style. But with technical things, it's like, yes, you can train an engineer, but an apprenticeship indicates kind of a more deeply involved skill set over a long period of time, and I think that's kind of fallen out of maybe not favor, but it's just not really done as much anymore. And I think that's a huge loss that you don't have people coming in and getting a very significant time to experience and learn from somebody who's been doing it, as an expert over time.
Yeah, why do y'all think the apprenticeship culture is kind of less prevalent these days? Because it's something that has never made sense to me. We have to do it in coatings.
I just had a conversation a couple weeks ago with someone that was saying how, for example, in high school, it was very negative or frowned upon for people who went to like a 2-year vocational school. It was like considered, you couldn't cut it to get a 4-year degree, so you're going to this trade school. That was very much the mentality, and the high school mentality has shifted from setting up your career to setting you up to go to college. And so I think there's kind of this mental shift that happened, and so now going to college gets you a degree, but that doesn't, we've seen plenty of people that come out with a degree, including myself, that were not able to really walk into the lab and say, I can polish an optic, I can turn a screw, I know what this hardware does. So to me, there's some level of just kind of society mentality about, this is a blue-collar job, or this is somehow lesser than a 4-year college degree. Right now, I think you're more sought after if you can machine something than if you have a 4-year degree.
Those people are harder to find.
100%. I'd be more interested in a machinist than a 4-year.
Yeah, so I think
their ticket.
Somewhere along there, it went from being a highly skilled, sought after, respected skill set that you have and have developed to fallback or a lesser track. So I think that has to change.
Seems like one economics class on return on investment for how much college costs.
Right. Well, and I think colleges are going to shoot themselves in the foot a little bit. At some point, you are going to start to get does it make sense for me to go to college? For a while, it was kind of everybody was working towards, you want to get your degree and you should go to college. Now, does it make sense to spend $250,000 on a private education for 4 or 5 years? And you look at some of the schools we recruit out of and what the tuition looks like each year.
It's too easy, right? You get a student loan and you don't think about the future.
You don't at all think about the economics.
250, whatever, I'll make money. And
what does that mean to you when you've been living with your parents and you're 15, 16, 17?
You get out and you're making $60,000 a year and can barely eat because you've got this huge pile of debt, right?
I distinctly remember the first time I got my, when I started going to grad school, and then I got the bill in the mail and it said, this is the monthly payment and here's the total amount that you eventually have to pay back, and the reality of that. And I'm consider myself someone who knows math and numbers and and the surprise of that is terrifying.
That's huge.
So that's again, maybe outside of optics industry, but I think that contributes to it.
Well, definitely.
Well, it's interesting. Actually, it's almost, there's an opportunity to flip it around, because why, if you have a bachelor's degree, can you not be an apprentice?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that
There's no reason,
I
yeah.
absolutely
yeah,
agree.
and we've had some folks come in, and I'm actually actively looking for a bachelor, physics, or electrical, or material scientist to come in and be a coatings apprentice, because we know we can't recruit for that, and so we just know we're going to commit a couple of years to train someone up, to do that. And we have a track record of doing that. We have 2 staff members right now that are, excelling in their career, having gone down that path. So it's a recipe that works. Attach them to the hip, someone with 30 or 40 years experience, they train them up, and rock and roll. But I think you're right. I think the word apprentice suggests
Has some sort of
no,
negative.
yeah,
Right.
no college degree.
Yeah.
And final thoughts on this topic? Talent in the optics industry.
It's worth the effort. It is definitely worth the effort, I would say.
I think it has to, I think a lot of times companies make it easy to say, oh, this is a policy problem. Oh, this is Washington. Oh, this is whatever. But, industry has a lot of money and a lot of power. They have lobbyists. I think industries have to push if they want to see some of the changes that we're talking about. So we could say it's a larger society problem, or it's not just affecting the optics industry, but somebody has to, push things forward, for any of these issues we're talking about. So I think it would be nice to see, industry realize or wield the power they have in terms of policy.
Great. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed our third and final part of our discussion on talent in the optics industry. Please leave us a comment to let us know what you think and to suggest other topics. Also, if you have any questions about today's topic or about the optics industry in general, please visit www.edmundoptics.com to access a wealth of free technical resources and ways to contact our engineering support team. Thank you again, and we look forward to hosting future roundtable discussions.